you're seeing these black people, and so you're thinking the worst of, or if he saw women, and he goes, you C-word, you fucking did it. That you would have to apologize to them and say, I have this thing. You apologize to them. My problem.
Your biggest gripe was the fact that he apologized to the
academy. It was because for some reason, some white men can't see themselves apologizing to a black man. That's like, what? I mean, you're talking about, like, that's why the history is important. Old black men were called boy by young white boys. They weren't called mister. So this is important to learn this connection of behavior. You know, England doesn't have a good reputation for respecting black folks either, because they had the Windrush with all the Caribbeans, the Windrush. And so I went on a tour about Windrush and the Caribbean migration and the hatefulness that they had. And so, England, you know, colonizing us. And so for him to say that, you're thinking about this man had a film in that same in the same award show. Yeah. So he's seeing two dudes that are killing it, winning a lot. So he could have been like, could beat him in his, because they're competing. So I want to hear that. You know, I don't want to hear that. You should have said, Mr. Lindo, Mr. Michael B. Jordan, I'm very sorry, but you didn't do it. So that dude kissed my ass.
Yeah, and then mental health, you know, conversations around Kanye West, but he doesn't get that pass, right? Like we just label him.
I mean,
you know,
he definitely has. I mean, like, and that's like obvious. Like to me, it's actually abuse to interview him at this point. Like, that's why I never saw him in interviews. Like, at this point, people are exploiting him. People are like, let's get him in front of us. That dude is.
Yeah, he's gonna say something crazy. I want to switch to this because you mentioned we were just doing the Barack Obama impersonation. He went to Harvard. You went to Harvard. Now, you know you guys went at different times.
Well, no, we overlapped.
Overlapped just a little bit? So did you guys ever cross prior to?
So the only time, and I should never tell this story again because it makes me look like a terrible pundit. The one time that I was in the same room with Barack Obama, he was at the law school and I was undergrad. Yep. And I had a good friend, God rest her soul, Shotzi, my best friend Shotzi at the time. She wanted a law school man. So we would go to law school parties, and Shotzi, Becca Nelson, and I went to Balsa. She was trying to, right? Okay, yeah. She was like, let me go ahead. And so we always trying to go to these little law school parties. We went to one party, and Barack Obama was there because he had just become the named Law Review. So he was the president of the Law Review, which was the first black man to ever be named that. Wow. Black person, period. So he was the big man on campus. So he was like a star. And I remember saying, turning to Becca and Shotzi is gone. She's left this plane, so she can't tell on me, but Becca is still alive. I said, man, it is too bad his name is Barack Obama, because he could have been the first black president. I did say that. I did. I said, it's too bad. I said, the name is the only issue, because he's got everything else. So, those are what I know.
Wow, that was insane.
Wow, so
my worst pundit moment.
Yeah, okay, well,
Barry.
We learned from that. We learned from it. What was that like being, you know, Harvard? I want to go back to Harvard because, like, you know, I appreciate how humble you are because, you know, when you said Harvard, you didn't go Harvard. Oh, but you have it in you.
I did get into Yale. And it ain't been.
So where'd you go to school?
And I remember going, when I would perform in Boston, I'd go to the Harvard Yard. Go to the Harvard Yard there, Mommy, you can go to Harvard Yard over there in Boston. So I'd go over there, and I'd see that John Harvard. He'd be sitting like this, that little statue of John Harvard. I go, look at this guy right here.
Oh, and the cops who talk like that was our biggest problem. They would pull over the little Harvard. I used to ride the Harvard shuttle, and I was a broke kid, not having money. Actually, my mom unfortunately passed away like 22 days before I started school. So my first year was just a dumpster fire of depression and drinking and sadness. And also I didn't have any money. And of course, because Harvard is cruel, they decided to transfer my mother's payment onto me. So I had to work 4 jobs. I used to wash blackboards. I got a job driving the shuttle bus.
It's the West Indian.
It's the West Indian me. I had 10 jobs. I used to take the class I was taking. I'm taking a because I was a pre-med. I was taking it. I took a chemistry class, and I used to take the class. And I would be so tired, I would start to fall asleep, and I'd hear in my ear, you're panting, and I wake up trying to tape it. Wow. But so that was like my freshman year was actually kind of a dumpster fire. So I didn't actually really enjoy Harvard that much. I was not in my full strength, you know, mentally and in terms of
There
mental health.
must have been a huge accomplishment, you know, before your mom, you know, left this earth, like, to know that her daughter was going to Harvard University. Like, walk me through that, like, when you, like, had that, like, oh, shoot, I got into Harvard. I'm going to Harvard, Ivy League.
So yeah, so you know the little recruiters, they come out and they start interviewing secret Harvard material. And so I remember doing the interview. I was in this place called the Village Inn, which is a local restaurant, and the lady who was white was trying to find me, and I'm like, I bet you that's the lady, and she's not looking for a black person. So she's looking around for me, and I'm like, I'm just gonna sit here until she figures out this. I'm not gonna approach her at all. It took a while before she figured out.
Bring me a menu. Looking for a white
Named Joy.
Trying to be you.
So you saw her, and then she's looking for you, and then
took a while, but she didn't interview me, but I did get in. So you know, when I applied, you know, I had been school counselors, and they're like, you can get it, you should apply. So I applied to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, University of Denver to make sure that
Columbia,
and I did not apply to Columbia, and I applied to Vassar. So those are 5 schools, and I got into all except Stanford. Stanford put me on the wait list. They put me on the wait list, but everybody else I got in. So I remember the day that, you know, when you apply to these schools, you know, you get the fat envelope or the skinny envelope. Like, that's how the counselor described it. So she's like, when you start getting your, you know, acceptance or rejection, what you're looking for is the fat envelope. So I just still remember the day that I went to the mailbox, opened, and there were a bunch of fat envelopes in there.
Wow.
And I just started opening them, and I opened, I think, the Yale one first. I also got into Brown. So my sister got into
big one.
yeah, so I wasn't gonna go to Brown because you know, I'm a lot of personality. My sister was at Brown. I was like, I will crowd her out. I'm just noisy and weird, and I'm like, let her have her space. So I didn't want to go to Brown, but I did get in, and then I just opened them up. But my mother, when she got home, I just handed her all of them. These were wheels for her. My mother and I were very, very tight, and it was her dream for me to go to Harvard, and I low-key really wanted to go to Yale, to be honest. I kind of thought I would prefer Yale a little bit, but she was so excited about Harvard. Like, I went where she wanted me to go.
what did you study at Harvard?
At first, I was a pre-med.
Pre-med. And then you switched to
So yeah, so my mom never got a chance to go, you know, because she passed away like only 2 days out. I get there, I was a complete mess. And I got my first F. I never had failed a class in my whole life. Right? I got 1 C in typing, and my mother literally drove me on her 2-hour drive from the University of Northern Colorado, where she worked, to screen with my typing teacher that she was doing my GPA, and I never had gotten anything but A's. And so I get a C, and she lost it. I was like, please don't come down and embarrass me. She's like, I don't care. Come and go. You take my television. She lost her mind. West Indian. So yeah, so Harvard was hard. It was difficult because I was doing something I no longer believed in. I didn't want to be a doctor. My mother had died of cancer, and I just thought doctors weren't. I thought medicine. And I was like, I don't want to be this, and I just hated it. I hated every minute. Hated all my classes. Started failing classes. So Harvard isn't really helpful. They give you the suicide hotline and like the directions to the lunchroom. Like, they don't really give you a lot of coddling. Like, my sister was at Brown, where they usually coddle you and they give you a TA, and they were always, you know, they're much more friendly. So I wound up taking a year off, and I had to figure out what I was going to do. So I moved from Denver, where we were Methodists, to whatever church, to my Auntie Dolly, who was an evangelical, 4-night-a-week church that lasts 4 hours, you know, and it was a lot. And and so it was very jarring, and so I wound up like moving out from my Auntie Dolly, who I absolutely love my auntie, but I was like, let me move my home, and I wound up just by chance moving to Fort Greene. That's where Spike Lee was cooking. It was Brooklyn Bohemian. And so I went back and became a film major. I went back and became a film major, and I was like, I'm gonna be Spike Lee.
So that's what inspired you to get into that.
To media. They didn't have a documentary film major. They had something called visual environmental studies, because it's Harvard. They're like, you're at Harvard, doesn't matter what you're majoring, right? Yeah. So I go back, I majored in VES, and with a documentary concentration, came out and was like, I'm gonna make movies. And so I went and got a job at Interstate School of Visual Arts. It's where I met my husband. I was working in the production office. He was still a student there, and that's how we met, and we decided to form a production company. And our first thing we did was a show called Video Joe Play. We did a music video show. Not a movie, but we did music video show.
Video Soul.
Like Video Soul. We were like competing with Rachel, who was
Rachel's
Caribbean Rhythm.
I used to love me some
People But look, we were her competition, honey. We were competing with her.
Her and Ananda Lewis.
Ananda Lewis,
Lewis.
And that was a music video era. It was like a dope era.
It was MTV was rolling, everybody, and then it just the reality shows. They said, let's suck.
Yeah,
let's not be live. Remember TRL?
Yes.
I did Spring Break 2 years in a row. This brother, I will never forget. Rod Asa, wherever you are, this dude, I know he's a big time. He's doing something. He's the one that put me in MTV. I was like, I was doing the 10th spot. I was in the mix, man.
Yeah, I remember.
Spring Break. My friends were like, yo, you was in Spring Break. You can't go. Like, yo, son. And I met, I was with Missy Elliott, Buster. I was in the mix, Fat Joe, Sean Paul. Just give me the line. What's up, everyone? I remember when Sean Paul, this was so funny. So, we're hanging as me, Missy and Sean Paul, and then everybody's like performing in outdoors, Spring Break. And Sean Paul's doing, I said, my friend, Ixia, she was a background dancer. So I'm like, and so Sean Paul is doing his thing, right? And after the show, he goes, nah, I'm not in shape, brother. Man, I'm making lazy, but that was so funny. Cause he had to be like,
he had to do the whole thing.
He came in like this. He came just like this. You have to sell it. He was like this, man, out of shape.
Listen, it was fun. We met Buju Banton when he was real young. He was like a kid. He had no dreads yet. He had the little ball.
Walk like a champion. Walk like a champion.
It was so much fun. So that's how we kind of started out, and we had a news segment. We had this with Debbie Goodison, who was our news segment. So we did it all. We had music videos, so rewind the videos. We like rewind. We had the best time. That's how we kind of got started, and then we wound up moving to Florida. And I really couldn't do what I was doing for my day job, and I wound up just writing to the local Fox affiliate, WSPN, and they gave me a job, and I started out in news that way, local news.
And obviously, you had to look back and just continue to
stay in that track. Moved to NBC News, the local NBC News affiliate quit because of the Iraq War. I was very anti-war, and they were just jingoism central. I couldn't take the way the media was doing the Iraq War, and got out of it. Wound up working on this campaign called America Coming Together, which was trying to help for John Kerry and George W. Bush. We lost within some of my friends from that campaign were working on the Obama campaign. So in 2008, I got pulled into that campaign. In between, did talk radio, and so the rest is history.
Oh, wow, look at that. I used to watch the show all the time. You used to go in though. They were good. Like Abby, what's her name?
Abby Phillips.
Abby Phillips. That's a pretty good segment.
Look at the points, boy.
That one. I hate that dude, that conservative. He always smug. What are you talking about? I'd try and slide and drop kick him. I can't stand his face. His smug face is like this. What do you mean? I'd be like,
New York, the fight to stop Trump, to stop ICE, and protect our democracy is not a game. And it will take all of us, one team, to win. But Daria Lisa, she's not with us. She doesn't say ICE. She says Kamala Harris. She doesn't attack sexual abuser Trump. She calls Joe Biden. So, Daria Lisa's not playing with us. Who's she passing the ball to? Progressive Unity Fund is responsible for the content of its advertising.
You don't pay big brand markups when you buy old brand.
It's an Aldi thing.
Disney had it 70.3, I think.
Yeah, we have
I'm nervous.
Me too, honey. Nature Made Gummy Vitamins. A delightful way to take care.
Repeat after me.
I choose joy today.
I choose joy today.
Quality gummies from Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist recommended vitamin and supplement brand.
One person that could not work in news would be
no.
So you went from local to read out. How did you get how did that happen? Because it was massive. It was cool. I'm like, whoa,
yeah. I mean, so basically, I was in local, quit because of the war, went and got a job in talk radio, and I was chilling in talk radio. And after working on the 04 campaign, we lost. So I got a job. My mentor, James T. Thomas, hired me to be his producer, ended up being his co-host. I worked for Radio 1. We were doing this morning show. Actually, Sharpton was our 4 o'clock show, and we were the morning show in Miami. And that's where I ran back into Obama, and that's where I saw him. That's where I sort of saw him again for the first time since college.
I don't know how
because when he was running, when he wasn't running, he was the main sort of spokesman for Kerry. So he came down to do speeches and stuff like that for him. So that's kind of what I did. And then when I got to work on his campaign, because my friends from 04 got me to work on 08, when he won, it was like a huge opportunity for everyone. If you were anyway associated, and I was minor. I was a minor player in the Florida campaign. But if you're just associated with him, everybody wants to book you. I started getting booked on British TV to talk about the campaign. I'm suddenly a pundit. Everybody wants to talk to me. And I caught the attention of thegrio.com. They had, David Wilson had just founded The Grio. He needed a managing editor. He had a friend that worked with me at TVJ before reach out to me, and I wound up coming to New York to run The Grio.
Byron runs it now.
Well, Byron has it now, but David Wilson found it.
Okay.
He bought it.
Because I just got on The Grio. They just put an eyebrow because I was talking about that we should have our own award shows. I think that when we're being disrespected, we should just stick with our own stuff and stop showing up to the other stuff, which I agree with. Because every time when I was at NAACP thing, I did the Black Picture. I said, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
All these dope actors. Our celebrities are better than theirs.
And it's more fun.
It's way more fun.
The BAFTAs, like later for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, I was at The Grio, and I used to just be on shows. I was on Hardball all the time.
Hardball, that's Chris Matthews.
That's Chris Matthews. So I started filling in for folks. I then got my little dayside show, The Read Report, which got canceled. Me and Ronan Farrell both got canceled after a year of doing that show. Yeah, and then I ended up just going out and doing reporting. Now I'm suddenly a reporter. My show was canceled. Bill Griffin was like, get out there and report. I did a lot of Black Lives Matter cases. I did the Trayvon Martin case, and wound up just kind of being a journalist, on air when I was more of a producer, managing editor. And then from there was kind of the rest is history when Melissa Harris Perry left MSNBC.
Melissa Harris
Her show was dope, right? Nerdland. And I was her fill-in, and when she left, I did not want to take the job because Twitter was gonna hate anybody that sat in that seat because they were so mad that she left. But she blessed the idea of me taking over for her, and I picked up the ball, and kind of the rest is history. That show was a hit, like the highest rated weekend show they had ever had. And then when Chris Matthews was unsummarily pushed out of MSNBC, I got tapped to take that over, and that's how I got the read out.
That must have been like a cool moment for you. I mean, was that like a kind of a pinch me moment? Like, man, I started here locally, and then now you're sitting there, big time. I mean, big time platform, big time show, great ratings, and like, what was that feeling like when you kind of got to that moment where you're going?
Well, I mean, at first it wasn't great because Chris Matthews was kind of a mentor to me, and I was upset about him being pushed out, and I didn't want him to. It was the same with Melissa. It was like bittersweet because I was happy to sort of be a caretaker for what she built, but I didn't want her to leave. You know what I mean? And I thought Chris Matthews deserved more time. So I wasn't like rooting for myself to get these jobs. I just ended up taking them. And ended up doing it because I was, being told this is what we need to do, just do it. And I just put my head down and just did the job. And I love my teams, both of those weekend and all 3 of my shows. The teams have been great. We made them really diverse. We always made sure we had super diverse teams, brought super diverse perspectives, and we were able to do stories that nobody else would do.
Tamron Hall had a show. Was she at the show?
She did.
I used to watch. I was like, who is that?
Tamron Hall. She had that daytime show, so she had my own spot.
That's why I would watch Tamron Hall's show.
And she recommended
she had
me.
to talk to her. Who did you find a black woman on that? Like, wow. Every time I would look for like, I'd be like, I'm here. I enjoy bringing up like Tamron Hall.
Tamron taught me how to walk in heels. Tamron from Texas, and I couldn't walk in heels. And she was like, you can walk in heels right now. Put those heels on.
Work it. I would watch all the little black girls on there, all the black women on there. But what's the other lady that got taken away?
I mean, black women, we're starting to become an endangered species in this news business. I mean, they're getting purposely because anti-DEI, is interpreted by a lot of these corporate suits as black. They just, even though
but it's always black though.
Yeah, they interpret it as black.
Anytime they're talking, it's about us. Paul Mooney said it best. I'm gonna tell you why white folks are mad. And white folks are mad because we gotta wait. We gotta wait. got away is because they don't have slaves anymore. He goes, when we was free, we had no job. When we were slaves, we had 12 jobs. He said, imagine if slavery was to come back and be like, oh, welcome home. We haven't seen you in a long time. Your room is exactly the way we left it. Paul Mooney, he was right. That's the reason, because all the wars in America were fought because of slavery. They wanted to keep what was the economy was slavery. The first thing on Wall Street was slaves. And so that's the whole thing. It's always about us. Anytime they talk sideways, it's always us in the peripheral. When they go DEI, it means black people.
To them. But the thing is, the thing that's so crazy is that functionally, affirmative action and DEI mainly benefited white
women.
So we didn't even benefit disproportionately. We actually didn't, and now that we are being hurt disproportionately, because when they say we're getting rid of DEI, it's interpreted by these C-suites as fire on black.
Yeah, and then I don't know if the lower courts or something, but I know the Fourth Circuit really appreciate how the organization and approach of DEI, right? Going up against what Donald Trump was trying to do with DEI. Was there a change in movement in that?
I mean, to me, it almost doesn't matter what the courts say, because the way that companies are interpreting it, the way Hollywood is interpreting it, you're hearing all these stories out of Hollywood. Just don't green light black stories.
Right.
Just don't hire black actors.
Period.
My sister's an actress, you know. June Carroll about to hire her for making movies. But I mean, it's like they're hiring fewer of us. They're giving fewer of our scripts green lights. They're giving fewer of our story, making fewer of our storylines, because they interpret
black.
And it's not even that Trump, signed a law saying you can't hire black people, but this is the way people are applying.
Well, that's just, it's always been in them. They're like, just go. But they're not going to touch the NFL.
Oh no.
Because I was hoping, I think you should fire all of them too, and we form our own league.
Right.
They were like, no, don't touch the NFL.
No, wait, hold on now.
We don't want the score to be 1-3.
Yeah, hold on now.
Dunks and stuff.
Crazy.
Jesus, it's going to catch. We don't want. Yeah, you notice sports was untouched. Untouched. Because I said, why don't we? How come it's still black lives? The NFL still said, you know what I'm saying? It's whenever they're benefiting monetarily, sexually, whatever, that's when it's good. But if they don't see, if they're not, if we have autonomous happiness, then it's like,
You gotta end that.
you ever see in the restaurant when black people buy themselves happy? They're making a lot of noise. They go,
Right.
you were too, and you laugh,
Right.
and you complain. Right, but it's like when they see us, they say, "Get out of here." Okay, we'll get out of here. Get out of our town. Okay, we'll go build our own. Let's go burn that. What are they?
Yeah, we gotta burn it.
Because we're running rent free in their heads every day. We run rent free.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
What do you think the long-term impact is going to be with the affirmative action? The removal of affirmative action.
I have to make a ton of input.
I'll give you Harvard for instance.
You should.
The last affirmative action class at Harvard before the rules went through had about 14% black. And when I went, it was 6% black. So it proved to get close to parity in our population. But it was 27% Asian. Asian Americans, Asian people are 5% of the country. There were 27% of that incoming class. After affirmative action, those numbers are roughly the same. The numbers of white men have gone down.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't worked out. And so now you're seeing the Stephen Millers of the world look at these elite universities and not see the number of white men increasing. And now they want those universities investigated. But what they're leaving out of the story is that for a generation, people like Stephen Miller, people like the late Charlie Kirk, have been telling white men, don't go to college. They've been telling him it's a waste of money, it's an indoctrination factory to turn you into a liberal, to make you woke. And so white men are self-selecting out of college. And so now when you open up the opportunity to go to Harvard, the people who are prepared to go to Harvard, who are busting their asses in high school trying to get good grades, are immigrant kids who they're chasing away. The international student body is plummeting, and that's what keeps these schools open. Because the international students, like our parents, the government paid their bills. They weren't paying for it. My father got his education because the government of the Congo paid for, or then Zaire. And so when you take the kids coming from China, that full payment from the Chinese government is gone. And the American kids who need student loans, who in many cases aren't even prepared for college, you're now whittling it down and you're expecting white men to carry the burden. I mean, the thing about this, a white guy, I think I'm offended. You want me to be all the pilots, you want me to be all the people in the defense department, you want me to do all the jobs. I gotta be every job. I gotta go to all the Harvards, I gotta do all these things. And I've been told for a generation don't even go to college at all. So a lot of these guys are not even prepared. So they're not even qualified.
A lot of them are mediocre anyway.
So they weren't prepared. And so it's like they expected that this would mean that Harvard would now be like 80% white men. It isn't. The majority of college students in America are women. More white women go to college than white men. And so now when they're looking at it, they're not getting the white man bonanza they expected, and the Stephen Miller's a little mad about it.
And he needs to go to that little.
The Hague. That's one place he should be. The Hague.
He thinks he's so dope. And I think, and there's a lot of, you notice when the first person who PhD is W.B. Du Bois, right? If you notice when you're at Harvard, there was just legacy people, there were dumb people.
Absolutely.
It's like you dumb as hell.
Some of the dumbest people I met in the world were people at Harvard who were legacies. The smartest people I met. Ketanji Brown Jackson, I went to college with her, who's a year behind me. Smartest person I ever met. Her roommates, geniuses. Genius, all four of them. Because they had to work 10 times as hard just to get in. Whereas the legacy kids, they didn't go to class. They were high. They were smoking weed. Because they didn't even get good grades. It didn't matter. They grade on the curve at Harvard. So they weren't going to fail. You know, I got E's. When I'm talking about failing, I got an E. They didn't give you an F. So they made it on a curve. And they try to keep you in. They put you on academic probation, etc. These guys go from academic probation to a ritzy job on Wall Street. Even if they passed no classes, these people didn't work. They didn't try. They didn't have to do anything but play lacrosse on the weekends and chill and get high. We're producing a group of people who are coming out of Harvard who are no more educated than had they not gone at all, because they didn't have to even read a book while they were there, because they're legacies, and they don't deserve to be there
At all.
in high school.
At all.
And yet they had the name. I mean, I went to college with a woman whose name was on one of the buildings. Of course she got it. Her name is on the building.
Her family, she's a legacy.
Her family's a legacy. So it's like, that person, is that person smarter than Ketanji? No. But that person gets to get it, and no one questions their presence. No one says, is that okay? But they say that this affirmative action genius kid from Ohio somewhere that busted their ass in high school doesn't belong there simply because they're black. That's America.
And you've had this interesting thing talking about the United States and just kind of the things that are going on now. You talked about dictators from other countries getting killed after they tried to stop trading with U.S. currency. Explain that and what happens diplomatically with the U.S. and other countries who might try to do things differently than the way the U.S. expects them to.
Right, and again, it's talking context, right? You know, Saddam Hussein was evil, but when he was our guy that we were using as a prop to fight Iran, he was our guy. We were paying for him. We were propping him up and keeping him in power, despite how cruel he was to his own people. We didn't care. He used our chemical weapons to bomb Iran in their war in the 1980s. We were fine with it. And then when we decided we were done with it because he wanted to then start to nationalize his own oil, then we were like, let's overthrow that guy. Mossadegh, now the president of Iran, duly elected. The people loved him, but he said, I want to nationalize our oil. This is our oil. It should benefit us. We were like, no, BP owns that oil. Knocked him off, put him in the shop.
Who was that? Oh, who's the guy's name?
Mossadegh, the guy in Iran. And then you go to, we propped up the, completely authoritarian government in Egypt for 42 years because they were playing ball with us. As long as you really say, you can be a dictator, we actually don't care about whether you're a dictator or hurt your own people. Mobutu Sese Seko, in my father's country, he was the CIA's guy. 42 years he oppressed the people who had already been through so much with King Leopold. He knocks off Patrice Lumumba, who was their George Washington, who was up there, right? And the CIA says, not good enough. You're not going to do what we say. Go away. We're going to give you Mobutu. We'll have it. We did it Salvador Allende. We give them Pinochet. In Chile, we destroyed Chile because they elected somebody who didn't obey us. So the U.S. has a history of destroying countries by getting rid of their elected governments when they won't obey us and give us their resources. Trump operates that way. He says, the Panama Canal is ours, give it to us or we're going to destroy you. Cuba's in the dark right now because we're going to pressure Cuba because we don't want them to be able to supply medical personnel into Venezuela until Venezuela obeys. We're going to knock off the new Iranian government to try to control their movement of oil, control Venezuela's movement of oil, control Greenland and their resources. This imperialism is causing the blowback that gets Americans killed, and Americans, meaning our troops, but also people overseas that are just in a base somewhere, a military base that get killed. So we have to stop this empirical.
Get the band.
So
Have a good night. Have a good night.
I love how well informed you are, especially on international matters. And we talked about this, we were saying this earlier, like, you know, as far as how much we know about international affairs, where's the best place for people to get like that full context to be able to understand? Because you hear one perspective and immediately it turns into a partisan conversation. You know, you're either left or you're right on this situation, but what's the truth? Where do you get your truth from? How do you get the truth and understanding kind of the bigger play in what's happening in U.S. politics and international politics?
Well, it's becoming less left and right because, and weirdly enough, MAGA and progressives agree on Israel, agree on Palestine. We kind of agree. Like we have kind of gone across the Rubicon of disagreement on something. We're starting to agree. Americans are waking up to the fact that we've been sold a bill of goods, that we have to lay down our lives for a client country. They're a client state. Why do they get to control us? Why do they control the president? Like, I think we agree on that left and right. And so for me, I think the best thing is what you said earlier is don't just watch one news source and just, people who watch Fox just watch Fox. That's why they're completely inundated with disinformation. You have to bounce around. I'll see what they say on the right. I'll read some of their stuff as well. But I also read the BBC, which I think is a good source of news and information. I love Al Jazeera English.
Al Jazeera?
I think Al Jazeera gives some of the best. Mark Lamont Hill is over there. Do some of the best analysis, the best information. Mehdi Hassan came from there.
Mehdi Hassan.
And I do love independent media. I love Zateo. I'm a subscriber. Love it. And I listen to a lot of independent media. You know, we watch Don Lemon.
Shout out to Roland Martin.
Shout out to Roland Martin.
I do the Don Lemon show. I was on
You just on it, like,
the Don Lemon show. I'm proud to say, you know, he's winning awards. He's doing well. I'm proud to be part of his first couple of episodes. Also, Roland Martin, who started, really went independent after. Because I remember when Roland Martin was on.
He's on CNN.
CNN and schooling people. Roland was, it was so great. It was him, the Latin lady that was out on The View now.
Right.
It was her, and they would go at it, and he'd be like, I got receipts.
It's literally how we say.
that's for Steve Harvey.
No. That's
him.
I know, he would be like, I got receipts, boy. Your ass better understand that I don't know what you done did. I'm gonna tell you this right. That's Steve Harvey. But Roland's like this, I got receipts. See, here's the problem. See, back in 1970, Roland don't play. Roland don't play. Alpha Phi Alpha, he don't play. And he was so good during the campaign, Obama campaign. They were trying to dog Obama. He would wipe the floor. Like, all of a sudden, he gets fired. Then he goes on BT, does his little thing in DC. I did that.
Yep, I used to do that show.
Right, and I would keep in touch with him all the time. On live during COVID, I'd be on him. And so he's like, I'm going independent. I've been telling these fools to go independent. So I want to give Roland Martin a shout out for what he's done, and just to see you all following along and kicking out. I sent you a message. I said, you watch Jordan. I sent her a message. I just said, you gonna kick some. You watch.
Because I'm going to get into that, because I had one more question, because I want to talk about the independent and kind of where media is going and where, you know, where people and how people can find you, and not only just find you, but how they can get the best and the real stuff. With the U.S. dollar, there are about right now 20 to 24 countries that have already ditched the U.S. dollar. How much is America in trouble with the ditching of the U.S. dollar internationally?
And this is, again, problem with contact with media. They don't tell you. So Venezuela, they have the largest proven crude reserves on Earth, more than Iran. Iran is number 2, they're number 1. So Saudi Arabia, they think is number 1. They're number 3, I think, or 4.
You really want me on top? Okay, I
Russia has some, we have some, but the big mother lode is in Venezuela. But it's heavy crude, it's very hard to refine and very hard to turn into gasoline. So they Citgo is their big company, they do supply some gas, right? But they're not the biggest. But what they and Saudi and all the others, what they actually do that helps the U.S. economy, they all trade in petrodollars. So the petrodollar is an invention that the United States came up with. I want to say during the Nixon administration, where essentially they said, if you sell your oil in dollars and only in dollars, never put it in yen, don't put it in rubles, just do it in dollars. You sell your oil in dollars and then you take what's called that petrodollar and you deposit that back into the U.S. by buying U.S. bonds. That transaction of selling oil in petrodollars and then taking the proceeds and buying U.S. bonds is new to the our economy. No one talks about it. It's just too weird in the weeds, and people in the news media don't think about it. But that petrodollar system is keeping our economy afloat. The reason BRICS is such a risk to the United States is that they're their own little coalition. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Saudi Arabia. BRICS. If BRICS ever became BRICS, y'all family country, if Nigeria, which is really playing with entering it, which is a major oil producing country, now it's
seventh in the world.
seventh in the world, so let's say Nigeria gets in it. What about Somalia? Why do we care so much about Somali? This is where Somalia has a lot of oil too. What if Somalia were to go in and become another S in BRICS? If these countries in the global south, and they're tied to Russia, because there are in BRICS is Russia, and the C in BRICS is China. If that global south conglomerate, it can literally challenge American dominance on the earth, and if they ever said, now we're going to trade oil in rubles, or in yuan, in Chinese yuan, we're cooked. Our economy is cooked. And the
So
reason...
what would happen to all the like reserves of people's bank accounts and the value of the dollar?
Down. And Trump is already pushing the value of the dollar down. The value of the dollar, Trump wants a weak dollar because it makes it cheaper to buy U.S. goods. So Trump has been doing all of these things to try to get people focused on Bitcoin and all these other things. And also his tariffs are making the dollar go down in value, which for Americans, if you sell stuff, it's good. The dollar is lower, it's cheaper to buy American stuff, right? If the dollar's worth less, you can actually buy more stuff. And so Trump thinks that's going to produce this big industrial trade. It's not doing that. All that's happening is the tariffs are pissing people off, causing people to say, fuck you, we're out of here, we don't want to deal with you at all. We may actually want to just start selling stuff in Chinese yuan. And that's the big risk. China is playing a long game. They've been around for thousands of years, honey. We've been around for 250. They're like, go ahead, little baby. Go ahead and keep playing with us, toddler. We're going to sit back in our Chinese, Confucius way and wait for y'all empire to fall.
That's crazy. Victor Gao.
Yes.
Gao said that to J.D. Vance's when J.D. Vance goes, these peasants, he
called them peasants.
Mr. J.D. Vance.
Sorry,
called us peasants. But I'm proud to be from peasants. In fact, we went to the same law school. I went before you. Maybe you need to go back and review. But besides, China's 5,000 years old. You're only 200. So you're nothing compared to China. It would behoove you to, he saved me, crushed him. Mic drop is
Mic drop is that. And the reality is, if I'm betting, who are you gonna bet on? The country that's dropping $1.3 million bombs on $20,000 drones in Iran, spending, what are we spending, $1 billion a week to bomb Iran? Every single bomb we drop is $100 million. Every single drone Iran puts up is $20,000. So we're already in a deficit with this war. We're already just by every time we drop a bomb. Trump has called Raytheon and the other big industrial military companies to come to the White House for an emergency meeting to say you need to produce more. We need more bombs because we're dropping so many and spending and wasting so much money. So we're now in the position the old Soviet Union was in. They spent themselves to death in Afghanistan. Their wars, they eventually killed, they destroyed themselves. It wasn't Reagan that destroyed them, they destroyed themselves. If by fighting for 20 years in Afghanistan, we did Afghanistan for 20 years, we did Iraq for 15 years, we've now done Iran, which is now spiraling into a regional war. They're now bombing all everywhere.
He wants to be a dictator. Well, he wants to be this MacArthur. It's this grandiose thing.
Yeah.
That bomb them. He just wants. It's like he's cosplaying.
I
a president.
and with that, like, I'm like, wait, what is the impact in the economics?
No
Because
way.
if that's happening and you're seeing that, like, what does that bleed out and look like to the average person, like the everyday person? How are they going to? How does that manifest?
What I would say is be very careful because our stock market right now is mainly propped up by AI companies. Our economy is mainly propped up by AI companies. We've bet so big on AI. It is a bubble, and that bubble's going to burst. And the two industries that we are currently propping up in America is incarceration. The mass incarceration of immigrants. That's the whole business we're in. That's the only business we've created in the last decade other than AI. And we're building AI plants which are polluting our country and betting on that as the future. And the third thing is you've got these billionaires, these oligarchs who think they can eventually replace all currency globally with crypto.
I don't know.
And so they think they can just create this crypto economy where you trade everything in blockchain and all this other bull and replace all currency with that. In the end, what happens is they get to be trillionaires, and a lot of people end up poor. And so I think we are losing our empire. Our empire is fading. Donald Trump is a fading dictator who's basically running us out. He's wringing out whatever was good in this country, and he's going to turn us into a third world country. America is going to be the ghetto because of Donald John Trump. And I liken the election in 2024 to that scene in Sinners where those people in the juke joint. And you know what the rule is when you're in the juke joint. Don't let the vampires in. And these motherfuckers let the vampires in. And it never goes well.
You think China is looking at this and going, wait, this is why we're going to start? Because you're seeing a big presence around Africa. You see Nigeria helping to build infrastructure.
Oh yeah, you know who China is in Sinners? The indigenous people. They said, we told you that there were some vampires over there, and we said they was dancing the Irish jig. If you don't want to hear it, we're out. They're waiting for everything to take place in the juke joint and just waiting to clean up the pieces. China, we are entering the great China century. China will win the Game of Thrones.
Wow. Gavin Newsom. What do you think?
I mean, I like Gavin's energy.
I think he seems like the guy. He's so pissed at Trump. I swear when his speeches just go.
Just go. It's going.
I want to knock him out. I just want to hit him. I think Gavin might be the guy. That's all. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He
talks a good game.
He talks a good. I'm not saying he's perfect. He's slick. But he has the look.
Yeah.
And he's angry enough at him.
That's a crazy thought, right? That he has the look.
No, but there's
Americans are visual.
We're visual. There is a look.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, you see Pritzker trying to lose weight to get the look.
Who's that?
Pritzker's trying to lose weight, and JD Pritzker, he's trying to lose weight.
There is a look. That's crazy. Because, because a lot of presidents are tall. So that,
And he's taller than Trump.
taller than him. So that.
Which will intimidate.
You don't think Trump will even think about this third?
That's what him and Bannon.
I know I've heard him, but but is
Trump is not going to leave.
how could he possibly do that?
How could he possibly do any of the things he's doing? Those tariffs are illegal. The war in Iran is illegal. Him enriching himself off of crypto while he's president. Melania having $sign Melania, which looks like it's Melania, having that. All of this is illegal. Everything. He's just like, I do illegal. Come and get me. It's all illegal.
So you think he's going to try for a third term?
I
know he said it. I don't want people think I know he said this.
So
maybe I could.
Bannon is like, we're gonna do.
This makes the town drunk.
Let me
So just to be like, so do you think that's something that he would actually literally pop?
Because the only way Donald Trump can ensure he never goes to prison is to be president.
Yeah.
Being president is how he stays out of prison.
He said it. He doesn't. He goes, if I don't get midterms, I'm gonna go to jail. He said it in that speech I was watching.
Nice.
And you're going to lose midterms.
Yeah. Because I think that's
Well, if there are midterms that are legitimately run, right? If they don't,
Because he's always trying to erase certain things.
right. They're trying to do national emergency. He's toying around with the idea, could I have a national emergency and postpone the midterms because that's
because of
what
a war,
Zelensky did, and there's a war.
you can't have
But I think
an
people
election.
are waking up because the Supreme Court shut down. It's like he asked for something. I can't remember. He was pissed. The Supreme Court was like, nah, you're not getting that.
I wouldn't, and the thing is, I wouldn't count on John Roberts and them to stop them. I mean, The problem with the United States now, and it's ironic because we're in our 250th birthday of the Declaration of Independence, is that we have monarchists. Just like, Iran has monarchists who are like dreaming of putting the Shah back on the throne. We have monarchists who really want a king. And I think one of them is John Roberts on the Supreme Court. I think those six, they would very much like to have a king, and they would like it to be a conservative Republican. That's their ideology.
Who do you think is the next runner-up? I know there's been talks of Stephen A. Smith. You don't know.
Is you ain't my baby.
Go ahead.
Baby, please don't let me down. A woman is a creature that's always been great. And then you turn around, then she don't go me to change. Oh yeah, yeah, well, look like we gonna be running for president, but the white folk like me. In fact, I ain't running for president. I like vice president because I like boss of them. So I need more wine. I'm gonna go vice. I'm gonna like president. I don't want president because I like no for a boss. Next question.
I know he did speak up on you. Like, was that
Stephen?
Yeah, Stephen A. Smith. He spoke on your departure.
Stephen A. Smith. He has maybe like 500,000 viewers a night, which is good on a sports show. That's never like I had higher ratings than him on my worst day.
Damn.
Than he had on his best day.
Wow.
So if that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
And also, Stephen A. Smith, weirdly enough, has like created this political show with a set that looks like my own set, which is very creepy. And then third of all, dude, you're not elected. Like, stick to sports.
Thank you. Listen, I was first take happy. I liked how Steve, I like how controversial his sports thing. I loved it. Oh, come on. What are you? I loved it. It was fun. I like that. It's sports. I get it. Then when he went off on Jasmine Crockett, and you telling her how she should talk to people, I said, what's this tap dance, man? This is real.
This time I'm playing
like my boy Shane says, fantastic ass behavior. And I was like, why are you telling Jasmine, who's in the trenches, doing her thing every day, and she come and tell you how to do sports? He literally told her how he should be talking to white folks. She should be talking to white folks. He literally been with her roots. White man give a foot for not Hitler. He's Hitler. He's Hitler. He's like, you need to know how to talk to white men. That's why you don't get nothing done.
I can't.
Wrong with the going and heated riding, Rambo. Wrong with the going and heated riding, Rambo.
What about Kamala Harris? You think she has an opportunity to come back and try to run again?
I hope so. I don't think
some people play high.
Why is that? She take a break.
Yeah, I think she's a lovely human being. I think there are great ways she can serve. I don't think that the United States is going to elect a woman in my life.
Wow, it's really a shame.
I don't believe it. And also, I think that in order for her to have won last time, and this is something I wouldn't have said to her personally, is she needed to take a giant step away from Joe Biden's Middle East policy. His policies in vis-a-vis Israel and Gaza were an abomination, and they were a stain on his presidency. And her association with that is still something that causes her to get protests everywhere she goes. She has to take a giant step away. If she ran again, she would have to repudiate Biden on Israel Gaza. That's the only way she could do it. And she's super loyal. I don't know if she would do that.
What about when you think about Kamala being thrown in kind of at the last minute to run for, there was this long delay about kind of acknowledging where Joe Biden was health-wise. And for her being thrown in at the last minute, there's some that believe that if there was a little bit more time for her, that she would have had the opportunity to really contend against Donald Trump. But that was...
He never should have run for it. He never...
There was this issue, and it's so frustrating too, because there were people who were calling it out, and anyone who called out Joe Biden's his health situation was looked at like, well, you're turning against the party, so no one could internally or within the party speak out on it without looking like you were being betrayed or
The
betrayed.
reality is, I mean, I would take if Joe Biden's mental acuity versus Donald Trump, it's not even funny. If we're not going to talk about Donald Trump seeming to have pre-dementia, I don't even care about Joe. And honestly, I said if he continued to run, I would have, and I deeply opposed Biden's war policies. I thought his policies for Israel, again, were morally decrepit. I thought that he shamed himself by standing by Bibi Netanyahu no matter what. I was embarrassed by it. I was reluctant to vote for him because of it. But him versus Trump, you're going to tell me Trump seems to be cognitively okay?
Trump went out. I remember he was walking towards the window.
He was wandering.
He went to a window.
Went to the window.
They were like, they were sitting in their little meeting room.
He just got up.
See that over there?
He just got up.
They were like,
And he started staring out the window.
staring out the window.
What are we doing?
He's like, this is beautiful. This is fantastic.
Biden just gave a speech last week. He seemed fine to me. Like Biden was off and on. They're old. They're both old.
It should be younger.
It should be.
Gotta go. This is too much.
It's too much.
I'm saying it's just
I agree.
much younger. You should be able to run as a young president. It would have been interesting to see if there was an acknowledgement early what Kamala could have done. Because it was a great. I think there was a great window right there to be able to see.
She won after
I'm starting to wonder about that too.
They said they think she won.
I'm starting to worry about that.
Elon, you can understand that the technology is very important. Is that they think that the technology is going to destroy the women. I don't think so. Because when we get to Mars,
Sir, did you just have a glitch?
well, there's a glitch in a bit. What I want to do is, I'm definitely going to I'm going to fix the Matrix because. Hey! So, I'm going to fix the Matrix. And I just think that
Thank you.
Nice. A better world.
So accurate.
Has to be a better world. It's definitely a but it's going to be
It's definitely a different world. Different world.
Man, I'm like, this is the guy.
Oh no, Peter Thiel is more. Like Peter Thiel is more incoherent than. They're all incoherent. If you listen to them, if you listen to Larry Ellison talk, you're like, oh my God, that's who controls the world.
It's. What do you think? What do you thoughts about the billionaires and their acquisitions of all of this media?
These are
and
all
the way
a
it
bunch
controls
of cognitively declining weirdos
That didn't get no ass in high school.
Come on.
Didn't go to the prom. They was punks. They was nerds. They were cornballs, and then they got money. And you take that and that socially inept with money.
But here's the thing, as a high school nerd, this isn't people who didn't go to the prom. These are the people who used to take a nap in their locker and who used to normally might come to school armed. They were so weird that people were slightly afraid of them. Like these are people who are just like, they're regular nerds. These aren't like normal nerds. These are people who were like so out there that you were a little concerned about them. You know what I mean? Like these people are oddities.
Why do you think they're getting to the space of like, especially with coming to owning like these media companies? Why do you think they're in this space?
Because now what they can do with these media companies, I mean, let's just take Meta for instance. Let's just take Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg and the Winklevoss twins. They were a bunch of geeks who went to Harvard and created a thing to rate girls. Because they couldn't get girls. That's all Facebook was. We had a thing called the freshman Facebook at Harvard, and it was a paper Facebook they would go through, and the freshman boys would go through and mark and give women ratings. These were the boys who would probably never they would never, and probably never would. Okay, maybe a blow doll was the closest they would ever get to a woman's vagina. And so they were here, and they were using the Facebook to be like, let's rate this girl. They were like Beavis and Butthead, and then three of the Beavis and Butthead, Butthead and Buttheader, they created Facebook, and they just digitized the freshman Facebook, and all they did it for initially was to rate women. To basically be like on the hotness scale. First of all, on the hotness scale, they were like a -10.
Right.
And so that's the kind of men who now run the country. People who are mad at women, who hate women, who feel like women need to shut the hell up, make them a sandwich, marry them, and shut up. They hate men like you all. They don't like alpha men. They think men who dig women, who women like, who are popular, they hate them. And so now they've created a matrix, a world in which they are supreme, in which they can use other humans like toys. And they probably dreamed of doing in high school. They probably dreamed, I'm going to use everyone like a
But the
toy.
world has the characteristic of a nerd now. Like, even going out is a little, everything's kind of, it's like it's their personality.
It's their personality.
Everything's controlled, socially inept.
Yeah.
You know, even like socializing is a little cold. It's the way they want it because it's their life.
That's right.
Now the world is theirs. Because I think they need to show a picture of the Earth with glasses.
It's pretty much. Because they are now like, and you can't say no to me now. Because I can see you through your glasses. You hear about this new thing, the Facebook meta glasses? People can surveil you through them. They can watch women on the toilet now. They can watch you in the shower. They're living their dream. Yes, they're looking through the phone. And so they're living their dream of being able to control other people and surveil them.
You know what's crazy? Because I have the meta glasses, and I've struggled using it because I'm like, it's weird. Like, the only time I found use for the meta glasses is like when I'm at my kids' games or something like that. Because it's hard to, like, I just want to watch with my eyes and just not having to be messing with the phone. But in other uses, it feels intrusive. You're walking around with it, like trying to find a moment to use it, and you know, you're just saying,
It's surveilling.
yeah, and it works really well too. I mean, for me, the only purpose that I use it for is so I can be present when I'm watching my kids' game, and you know, I can just record like the little bits. Oh, okay, I watched that and I saw it, you know, when they're playing. But outside of that, it just feels weird. So I don't use it as outside of filming my kid game. But to hear that, I'm like, it wouldn't surprise me. But the other part that is really like frustrating to me is that the media, especially the social media, is like very controlling of the way we think, we behave. And I keep talking about it, but this damn algorithm is scary, and how it can put you can have 10 people in a house and everyone's living in different realities and silos, and you're living in the same house, you're experiencing the same thing, but you're seeing and experiencing the outside world differently. And literally, like, the algorithm can change this conversation and make it something totally different. And I'm like, yo, I'm like, this is scary.
It is, and the Ellisons getting control of TikTok. Because remember, the reason that a bunch of Democrats idiots, they just voted for this law that made TikTok illegal is because they said you can't have the Chinese government controlling the algorithm, not the program, but the algorithm. And now who controls the algorithm? The Ellisons. And they have a very specific ideology.
Okay,
so do I want their ideology controlling the algorithm? No.
It's okay. So I get this. I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes sometimes coming and get a little scary. Like, oh man, I think that's mine. Yeah, I think that's mine. So every now and again, you know, we all do it where we get the terms and agreements and we just click and we don't. And so I have like 1.1 million followers on TikTok. And I wanted to go back on to my TikTok, and it says
It popped up.
it popped up, and I was like, hey, I've already been on this thing. I don't want to. I said, I don't want to. I said, let me just look into this thing. I said, I'm not itching to get into it. Let me just tell you what I did. I took the terms and agreement, and I popped it into AI. I said, this is way too much for me. I ain't reading all this. Tell me what I'm giving up. Tell me what, and I promise you, and I put it in my notes. I had no idea you were going to talk about this, but hold on 1 second. It is scary. Oh, it is scary. They have the forever license. They can take the privacy that you're giving up. They can, without your consent, they can use your face, your voice, and to train their AI model.
That's what Cobby said.
I said, what?
He said 900 million
Yes.
for his likeness forever. He sold his, and he's the biggest TikTok.
They can use it. It says no truth guaranteed. They admit AI generated content might be inaccurate, misleading, or offensive. And if you get misled by one of them, oh well, it doesn't think. So this is just the wild, wild west, or whatever you want to call it.
My sister was involved, you know, when the actors actors unions were trying to renegotiate their contract. This was one of the issues. They wanted actors to allow studios to use their image that way. So imagine you're in a movie and now forever, they can take your image from that film and then reproduce it into porn, into whatever movie they want, put you in the background of another film. I mean, and for performers, for you guys, I mean, you're talking about, I would not put like a comedy routine on TikTok. I wouldn't do it. Because if you do it, they can use it. They can steal it. They can steal your image. They can steal everything.
All of it. Yeah, all of it.
And they own it.
It says it right here. It says the privacy policy is much more invasive than the terms and service because it details the specific data TikTok harvests, and it just breaks down what they harvest. I mean, I can go
health information,
communication, your digital footprint. Get this one. This one freaking tripped me out. It can. I'm not making this up. Keystroke patterns. They track the rhythm of how you type. This is often used to identify you even if you switch accounts. I go, wait, I have a rhythm in which I
sure.
I said, what?
That's insane.
I won't get back into my TikTok because of it.
And
I'm like, that is, I mean, look, this list goes on, and this is the abbreviated version through AI. That was enough to make me go, oh, I'm good. And if you're complicit to it, you're just saying, oh, everybody else is doing it. And I know people are gonna get in the comments and be like, oh, well, what you think they're doing on Facebook, and what you think
they are.
But I already signed up for that one, so I guess I'm screwed.
We're already on it.
I don't know if I want to, you know what I mean? Like, but
And I don't trust Meta. I don't trust, and the bottom line is you have to, you know, I think what we need to do, just if you're aware of it, is just be a little bit more judicious with what you do with your image and with your content.
Yeah.
You know, our daughter is an artist. She pulled herself off of Instagram because if you put your art on Instagram, and I know artists who've had their art stolen because they then use it for their AI, and also it generates AI images using the art you created. Your original work is gone. They don't pay you for it, and they want to do it without compensating people. So it's just we're in a wild west.
There's no compensation for any of your stuff and however they use it. Oh, well, I'm glad
It's a bad time.
All right, I want to get a little bit into your personal life. Let's talk about your husband. You guys, you said you met earlier
At School of Visual Arts.
Yeah, the School of Visual Arts.
Yes. It was pre the Me Too era, so it's fine.
Oh,
Guys get to talk. Say, what's up, lady?
okay. So I did some real digging for this one. Been married for a very long time.
29 years as a
Let's see what happens when you
Nice.
like
29 years. You guys are business partners. First off, what is the dang old secret? What is the secret? Because 29 years.
Yeah.
I've been married 17 years. That's a lot of years.
Yeah, well, we have the same mission. I think part of what you need is you need a friendship. That's the basis of your relationship. That helps. And we started out as, you know, we were friends and dating at the same time. We were part of our little group that was doing our little music video show. We were a little collective, a little black people trying to do our little thing. So we've always had the same mission. We've always wanted to do a production company. We want to do the same things, both in media, which helps because if you're in media, it can be challenging being married to somebody who's not in the business. Because the hours are crazy, the demands are nuts. Like you're not home a lot, you travel a lot, right? So it's like somebody who's actually in the business as well gets it. You know, they really understand it. And we're just on the same wavelength of the things we want to do. I mean, he was for a long time trying to tell me to go independent, and so as soon as we had a production company already, documentary film production company, and when I got fired on my day off, like I say on Friday. He was like, good, let's roll. He was ready to stop, drop, and roll and get the Joy Beach show. And it took us like 5 months to set the show, 4 months to just get the technical piece of it down. So we were ready to roll. So that helps.
Were you scared? Your husband's pushing you that way. He's like, all right, I'm down for it. I'm ready. Were you scared to go independent? Like, especially coming from like the big networks?
Yeah.
Knowing like the big engine that runs the network and the ad agencies, like what's that been like? Now the Joy Reid show where everybody gets to like feed straight to you.
Right. No, I mean, and I should mention also we got together very young. Okay. We were 21, so now I'm a baby. I'm basically a kid. So, but no. So I wasn't scared because we had been doing production stuff for so long that I know people. I am really bad. I can't barely get my laptop, my phone to work. but I know he's really good at that. That's the other thing. Is each person has a skill. I'm a news person, but he's got that technical skill. So I knew that whatever we did was going to be high quality. He's an exceptional editor. So I knew whatever we did was going to look amazing. I knew it was going to be technically brilliant, and that all I had to do was just do what I do. Now the other piece that was challenging is that now I'm back to being a producer. I was a producer before, so it's like you got to be a producer and talent, and then running a business and doing all that. That is more intimidating to me than doing the show. Because running a business is hard. Like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And so we are a tiny team doing the work of what I used to have 60 people to do at MS. So that is the hardest part. It's just the actual physical work of it and the exhaustion of it. But the freedom is fabulous. And one thing I definitely don't miss is having to get yelled at by my bosses because I said to talk too much about Gaza. You know what I mean? I can say what I want.
Right. And so there's going to be a freedom to that. Like when people are watching now the Joy Reid show, what are they going to get different from Joy Reid that they perhaps couldn't see when you were on network television?
So the two things that are different is I can cuss, which I was I'm overdoing it. I'm a cousin Christian. Say that.
Beautiful.
I can say that.
You can say that.
And like they got really mad. They were like, no name calling. We used to have this segment called The Worst Person in the World, and then our boss got mad. Like, we don't like the name calling. Like we used to take those Cancun cruise and stuff like that. Now I don't have to worry about that. I can tweet and social media. I can do whatever I want. And so I love that. But what you're going to get different is that I kind of just be myself and not have to edit myself for a corporate boss.
How do you go through do you still as you're going through and it's not going through standards in practice, right? There's no standard in practice. What type of editorial editorial control do you put into the content that goes out? Are you going to be double checking someone? I don't know if that's right or that's accurate. Who does that? Who double checks? Who checks Joy?
Yeah, I double check it. If I have a producer, and I will run stuff by certain producers. If I'm not sure, but if they give me something, I'll have a producer try to help me double check it. But I'm having to do a lot of it myself. But I still work in standards and practices. The good thing about being an OG in the business, for a while I worked at CBS Standards and Practices, so I'm in a way, I think standards and practices wise, I'm always thinking no defamation, making sure.
You weren't the one when I was working on the talk. You didn't give me notes, were you?
Don't talk to me. We don't talk No, this was like when I had my year off, when I took my year off of school, one of my little jobs, I worked at CBS Standards and Practices for Jane Ann McGettrick was my boss. They used to call themselves the censors. They were honest about what we were doing. So I had that in my mind, and I dealt a lot with standards and practices when I was managing editor of the Rio. So I know how they operate. So I know what the parameters and the limits are, what we can say.
Yeah, and I would say this because it's so cool to see, a black couple, a strong couple, a power couple working together. And it's cool to see 29 years, but I want to go all the way back to the beginning because you and your husband, your first date, he took you to go see a movie, Strictly Business. Now you guys are strictly business. You guys are not just doing Strictly Business.
Yes.
But after the movie, I went deep in the internet on this one. After the movie, where'd you take your husband?
Okay, so here's what happened. Now let me just explain. Let me explain to Cheesecake Factory. No. So when we met, we were working. We were working at School of Visual Arts. He was working in the production company. I was the boss of the production company. Again, it was preview too, so we were allowed to date. So don't say nothing to me. And so we decided our first date, and I was making $5.25 an hour. Okay, let's just be real. I didn't have money. I was making $5.25 an hour. I don't know what they were paying him. I was in charge. We were probably making $5 an hour. We weren't making a lot of money. So we had to do a date that was not expensive. So we decided to split it. So I paid for the dinner and he paid for the movie. So he paid for the Strictly Business and the popcorn. And then I took him to McDonald's, and I'm not ashamed because I took aside. But I said, usually I don't do this, but go on and get you the big fries. That's what he said. That's the woman for me. That's the woman for me.
Is that
I'm gonna take
number two. If you say I'll take 2 bottles of that, so we gonna get we doing it big. We're supersized.
Get the big fries.
You ever in the picture? Don't go beer it off. What about apple pie? Is it in the combo?
Do you remember what was on that first date?
I had a Big Mac, large fries. That used to be my signature meal. A Big Mac, large fries, and a Coke, and a pie, and apple pie. And
the original apple pie.
The original one, the fried one.
The fried one. Baked crab.
What was that?
That was
Friday, give it to me like I like
That was
it.
McDoodoo.
That was McDoodoo. And he got a quarter pounder and cheese, large fries, and a Coca-Cola. That was his signature meal, and an apple pie.
Okay, that's good as Ooh, that's good as hell. I don't care what nobody said. That's good.
So it was an excellent meal.
let me just throw you on the hot seat. I'm gonna throw you on the hot seat. This is gonna be very, very political. If you guys were to go and recreate that first date,
Yeah, we went
how would that play out? Where would you take him now? Where would that dinner place be?
So we
Well, I'm a little bit more spoiled now.
Okay, I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear big time. I want to hear big time.
Yeah.
You went from McDonald's to what now?
McDonald's was, so I would say like a fun date, like to now. And we've done this before. Maybe we will go to see like
Burger King.
Burger King is whack. I don't like Burger King. Chick-fil-A.
Now that's a step up, because they got the waffle fry.
We got the waffle fry.
Yeah, with that little special sauce. Come on now, that's a step up. That's a step up. We can pick our own.
No, I think what you do now, like a good date now would be like you go to like a Four Seasons, do like the Four Seasons.
Sweet.
They have a great restaurant, fabulous restaurant, right? And you could kind of do the Four Seasons in New York. I think that's fabulous. And then I like the Harlem Dance Theater Harlem.
Yeah.
Because we went to that, that was a good date one time. You go to the Dance Theater Harlem. It's something, it's not what you would normally do with a brother. You get the brother to go and do something that was not like a normal thing that he would be into. Right. And so I think you kind of flip it up, switch it up. So I think you do Dance Theater Harlem, go and see an amazing show, and then hit that Four Seasons, get that restaurant deal, and then get you a room and go make you a baby.
don't have a tie.
Darialisa Avila Chevalier wants us to trust her, but her campaign is bankrolled by a CEO and an ICE contractor who make their living terrorizing our communities. And when Kamala Harris was elected, Chevalier said Kamala Harris. She even called President Joe Biden a rapist, and then she deleted the posts to run for Congress, hiding who she really is. We can't trust Darialisa Avila Chevalier.
Yeah, okay, so just go
responsible for the
bio.
content of this advertising.
Essie's built different. That's why it only runs on Duracell.
Yeah, but like, yeah,
Follow Luis.
Although I don't want to work here. That's like, yeah.
Your husband back there. Huh?
yeah, I'm like,
You said what?
by the way.
He's like, girl, you ain't said nothing but a word.
It's like nothing but a word.
Yes. And you thought you were about to be an empty nest.
Never gonna be
That's very good.
And you guys have 3 kids.
We have 3 adults. We have a 30-year-old, a 28-year-old, and a 26-year-old.
Three adults. I had nothing. Nothing.
I mean, I have 3 if you'd like to. I can send one over.
I have nothing. I'm not married, no broke, nothing. I have good girlfriends.
Yeah.
I have good girlfriends.
Okay, bye.
I run into
No,
weird. My ex-girlfriend was my best friend, right?
Yeah.
My date.
So what is the chapter? Because this is one thing that like I talk with my youngest about this all the time, how hard it is to date now.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's like very difficult?
It's real, and I'm really jaded by a lot. I get bored quick, and it's like, and I'm so, and you know what it is too. The fact that social media turned a lot of stuff around for me. I'm so focused on it because I'm like, I'm on to something.
Yeah.
Because I never really been on to something like this because I was always, everything I'm doing now, even I got, Eric Benet. Eric Benet is now in the camera talking.
Yes, he is.
And he goes, dude, because a lot of them are following me because I've been talking like this. I never stopped talking like that. So I was shunned out of a lot of stuff. Even with black folks, it was like a little too much.
It's like too much.
And so I was always that guy, still talking. Yeah, I was like intellectual, pro-black, I was always black women and blah blah blah. And I was able to balance it, but it was always Forget the cooling month. Forget those dudes. Forget those women that do that. I always stayed in my pit. I never stopped. But then social media was like, oh wow. Oh,
They discover something they think is new.
Well, I said, I've been, and I'll see comments going, God, he's been talking like this. He's been talking like this. So, it's like, I focus on it. I'm really focused on it. Now, I said if something happens where I haven't had anybody that I go, yeah, I haven't had it. Listen, I'm not saying I'm a creep, but I'll be on Instagram like, yeah, look at me there. I said it to my boy. Yo, look at there, right? Is that AI? Oh, you don't know if anything's AI. Do you love me? No. They go off. I haven't felt that in a long time. Like,
I'm gonna dive in.
yeah, I mean, as far as shallow and like, there she bad.
See you later.
I'm in that. It's just like she bad.
Would you get married?
I mean, if it happens, it has to be real. I don't really care about a marriage. I care about the relationship. I don't care about that.
You want kids?
I don't. If I can get a couple up, I'm like, I can be like this. Say hello to my little friend. Right? I don't know.
First of all, I have to just, and look, I am a married person, so I'm not, to tell you the truth, I think people emphasize too much that it has to be about marriage. I think in the modern world, if you can just get a good,
just get somebody you work around. I don't care about that. I'm just saying, I want to get, I mean, I have the tour where I go, yeah. Oh yeah. I don't think about anybody. I don't think about anybody.
if you on doing your
I
thing,
don't think of anyone. No song reminds me of anybody. Nothing. None of that. I'm like, I don't think of anybody. I'm on Wu-Tang.
well, listen, as
I'm Wu-Tang all day.
as the daughter of an African, this is an opportunity. So I'm going to start going through the Rolodex of my friends. I'm really
No,
going to do
because
that.
and I have a certain type. It was just pretty and that take care of themselves, body wise, smart. Not annoying, not combative. That ain't happening. I'm not stressing out. I've earned my keep as an older guy. I'm not stressing out. I'm not competing against you. Just chill. I like to have your own friends. Solitude. Even we're in the same house. Let's just solitude.
You gotta be on top of each other. You can do your own thing.
It has to be all of that or nothing.
What would you say to women out there who are, saying that they're looking for a man? Like I think you're somebody to be respected, not only for who you are as a person, but your work. But then 29 years of marriage, and I'm at this stage of my life where I'm seeing a lot of people around me getting divorced.
Yeah.
Man, what happened?
And like the couples you think are going to make it.
And it just starts falling down. So, what would you say out there to women who are looking for a husband? We heard from God, but how he thinks. What's your thought?
And I got single friends that are always looking. I mean, the reality is, I think the most important relationship is with yourself. I genuinely do. I think if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, then there's no point in having a relationship. No relationship can fill what's missing. It's gotta be
But do you think that puts the pressure of perfection? Like I had this conversation with young boys about I gotta have this, I gotta have money, I gotta have this, I gotta have a job, I gotta have this, I gotta have that. And at some point you just start working yourself until you gotta feel like you're perfect in order to be in a relationship, because getting to know yourself and being with yourself is two different things.
That's right.
Because it's a growing thing. Like as you grow, I'm not the same person I was a year ago.
But I mean, if you have good self-possession and you really have developed like an understanding and liking of yourself, I don't think it's even about having money. And I feel bad for young people now, because we had this conversation with our son too. It's like the expectations on young men. You got to be rich, famous, and then it's like, so these young men, they feel like they're always inadequate to everything. The girls look at the paper dinner, and it's also, I feel like for young women, the idea is it's okay to grow with somebody. Me and mine literally were at McDonald's and a movie, and then we grew from growth. We literally grew up together. We were in our 20s and we grew up together. I would be at his house, because like I said, I was a little orphan. My mom was gone. My father was in Congo, and so when I would go hang out in Queens with his family, they were like my family. So I was like an adopted family. We were two people with no money. We were two people with big dreams, and we were growing together. And I wish more young people would think about the idea that the person doesn't have to have everything already. You can literally start from nothing and grow together to have something. We did it. And I wish people would think about
that quick fix.
But the quick fix is being exacerbated by social
media.
And social media is saying, you're seeing this too. And this actually happened with my wife and I when we had to go, whoa, time out. Because for the young kids, it's happening one thing, like, the girl wants this, and then on the other side, like, men want this, and it's actually separating them apart from each other. My wife and I are just, stuff will pop up on your feed, right? And it's like, if your wife does this, this means this. And for her, she's getting, if your husband does this, and it's all happening privately, and it might be some little bit of truth in there, but you won't see it like that might connect, and you go,
But
and before you know it, you start fighting against each other.
Exactly. And the other piece of it is just know that most of the lives you see people lead on social media are it's not real.
The women I see, they're always taking pictures of, I'm in a better place than you, look.
And it's not real. It's not real.
And it's creating envy, but I also believe, this is my own conspiracy theory, I also believe that the algorithm is trying to make everyone asexual. Where they are like, it's just me and the phone.
It's just me. I don't want your relationship to be with the phone
and not with human beings. So it's like, hey, like, it's just me.
Then you know what else happening in clubs? This girl, she's like, she fixes clubs. She goes around and designs clubs. And she goes, I noticed going around overseas, whatever. Nobody's dancing anymore. Nobody's using their phone. So we're trying to structurally change it where people are forced to get the tables out the way, not a lot of tables, because it's like now they got guys doing this where they have in TikTok find out who that girl is instead of just
going out the same way.
But then what's it? Vincent was saying it to these girls, saying, I want to tell you all something. She's totally pretty, all these pretty black women. She goes, the reason why guys ain't coming to you is because you're mean. You talk like you're dudes. You say bruh to guys. You're talking crazy to men. And you want them to show you respect. Respect is she was going off on it. I go, it's true. So I don't have the motivation like I used to go in the summer, like talk to women, because I grew up in Chicago. My father used to say, go to the woman. That's still take man.
How do you feel about Joey?
A new generation of New York Democrats are rallying behind our guy, Feline Norton, AOC, Mayor Zoran Mamdani.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome in. What are the peace agreement details? Well, we might have just gotten our hands on exactly what all of this would look like between the United States and Iran. Meanwhile, just a few moments ago, Iran is now threatening a harsh response to these Israeli attacks on Lebanon. So is Israel going out of its way to make sure that there is no peace agreement? And Israeli officials have said President Netanyahu is going to release the full extent of the Epstein files if there is any kind of agreement between Iran and the United States.
And plus now President Trump is saying, well, maybe we don't have to fight this war. Maybe Syria can just do it for us. So does that sound familiar? That's the proxy war strategy that, kind of led us to this in the first place. But is that a serious strategy? We're going to talk to Joe Kent about this. Not only is he a whistleblower behind the Iran war, but he is also someone who lost his wife to the war in Syria. I wonder how it feels to have fought ISIS only to now turn over the war to ISIS as our ally. I imagine that's a kick in the balls.
We will indeed. We've got a lot to talk about, plus America's housing crisis today on the show. But first,
I want to tell you about our friends at Shopify, because if you ever thought about starting an online business, the hardest part is often just getting started, building a website, setting up a store, figuring out how the back end works. Well, with the Redacted store, we use Shopify. Shopify can help you too. It is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world. In fact, 10%
sources. So they're going to go after the Strait of Hormuz again. They will put their foot down on the neck of the strait, and it will put pressure on Trump in ways previously Trump was able to avoid. But now that those buffers we're hitting tank bottom here, that's it. Trump will have to do something very serious against the Israelis if the Iranians decide that the Israelis have gone too far into southern Lebanon.
I want to ask you. I'm going to ask you a palate cleanser. How about this? Did you happen to watch the World Cup where Iran played yesterday?
I don't like soccer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to ask, like,
Pretty much agreed to it. Remember, one of the reasons the last round of bombardment occurred was because Trump was trying to squeeze Iran to accept his conditions for harsher, regulation or access to these proposed purported Iranian nuclear weapons arsenal or their nuclear dust, as he says, and he was also trying to get them to reopen the Strait of Hormuz faster. They both, even after the bombardment that we just did, the Iranians said pound sand, so Trump quietly removed those conditions from what has now become the final sort of draft of this MOU, this Memorandum of Understanding. The Iranians have they're sitting in the driver's seat. They have all the leverage here, and they are dictating terms, and the Americans, President Trump, is desperate because he's fully well aware we're hitting tank bottom of our strategic petroleum reserves beginning as early as June 22nd. He is fully well aware if he doesn't get energy flowing again immediately through the Strait of Hormuz, there's no amount of BS that he can give the markets to prevent the spikes in prices that will come immediately thereafter. So he's got to get this going again. He needs an MOU at least for the next 60 days. The Israelis don't want to give it to him. But there's a lot of BS because he knows if it gets out what he's given them, or what he will give the Iranians, it's going to be the end of him. It'll be the end of the Republican Party. It is a conditional surrender document that he's signing on to.
Over the past 24 hours, there's all these memes floating around on the internet. MAGA waking up realizing they spent whatever 40 billion, 60 or 80 billion dollars bombing Iran, only then to give them 300 billion dollars to completely rebuild their country. So you have, of course, MAGA furious about this. You have a lot of neocons, including lazy.
As a formerly undocumented immigrant, Adriano Espaillat knows what our communities need. That's why he's hard at work, making life more affordable for our families, delivering billions of dollars for local transit projects like the 2nd Avenue subway, fighting to lower healthcare costs and protecting renters' rights. It's why progressives we trust have endorsed Adriano Espaillat, because we need a proven fighter in Congress. We need Adriano Espaillat. Bold America is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Breaking news right now, the shooting at a major hospital, at least 2 people shot inside, the entire campus on lockdown. Dozens walking out with their hands up, officers in tactical gear rushing in, law enforcement surrounding the building, our reporter live at the scene. Also tonight, the chilling new details into an alleged plot to attack the White House UFC event. Plans for explosive drones and snipers to target top officials and millionaires. 5 suspects arrested, the urgent manhunt for others. Dangerous floods ravaging the Gulf, passengers rescued, holding onto a rope. Floods nearly topping car roofs. This woman saved just before her car was submerged. Plus, tropical storm warnings just issued. Could we see the first named storm of the hurricane season? Bombshell new reporting on Jeffrey Epstein's death, what 2 of his cellmates reveal about his final days. The dramatic video of the U.S. Coast Guard leaping onto a runaway boat. What happened next? Detecting Alzheimer's, the growing demand for blood tests that help diagnose the disease, but how accurate are they, and who should get one? We speak with an expert. And our reporter getting an early look at the robotic hand that could revolutionize robotics as we know it. Plus, big changes to the Grammy Awards, the new categories just announced. Top story starts right now. Hey, good evening. We are coming on the air tracking 2 breaking stories tonight. A shooting at a hospital in Wilmington, leaving multiple people injured. The details are still coming in. Here's the aerial footage showing people evacuating, their hands up in the air. We know 2 people have been shot at this hour. We're going to take you to that scene live in just a moment, but we do want to begin first with the ongoing manhunt for suspects involved in that foiled terror plot causing the massive UFC event at the White House. Authorities arrested 5 people using high-powered rifles, body armor, nearly a dozen rifles, you see it all here, and thousands of rounds of ammo. The FBI says dozens more were involved and are still at large tonight. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell has the late-breaking details.
This White House celebration, a UFC fight to mark the nation's 250th birthday, the alleged target for a disturbing, potentially deadly conspiracy, foiled by federal agents who say they arrested 5 suspects in Ohio, Missouri, California, and Nebraska, but more remain at large.
It was an active plot, and it's ongoing.
Officials say the suspects coordinated on TikTok and various encrypted chats. Their twisted plan, officials say, would fly drones with explosives over the event to force the crowd to evacuate, and then snipers would fire as the high-value targets fled, including the president, billionaire guests, and a list of Republican lawmakers who one suspect said took contributions from AIPAC, the American lobbying group that advocates for Israel.
It's a terrorist plot. That's not a few guys doing crazy stuff. That is a coordinated, planned terrorist plot.
19-year-old Tyson Proper of Ohio is among those arrested and charged with federal conspiracy and attempted murder. According to a criminal complaint, Proper's mother alerted police, concerned that her son quit his job and spent $3,000 of his graduation money to buy weapons and gear, including this rifle painted with an American flag, while posting anti-Semitic comments on Facebook. Another suspect, 32-year-old married father of 5 Daniel Eskridge of Missouri, posted a photo of his tactical gear and wrote, "When it's go time, I'll have to leave them behind in hopes I can return with a brighter future for them." The motivation? Tyson Proper told authorities this attack was designed to jumpstart a revolution in the United States.
All right, Kelly O'Donnell joins us tonight from Washington. Kelly, you have done some new reporting on the search for those suspects.
Tom, what we know is that a dozen FBI field offices around the country have been involved, so has the U.S. Secret Service. They've been working this case, and they're in pursuit of 9 other potential suspects who've been identified as being a part of this group, in those chats, part of that planning, while a dozen others are known only by usernames. And their identities, their true identities, have not been figured out yet. That means the case is active and open. And what we've learned from one of the suspect's parents is that part of the motivation was a range of grievances against the federal government on a range of topics. That brought the group together, and authorities are trying to figure out who was actively involved and who was just about talk. Tom?
Okay, Kelly O'Donnell. Kelly, thank you. For more on this, I want to bring in Keith Wojcicki. He's a former Secret Service agent and now serves as the Senior Managing Director of FTI Consulting with extensive background in cybersecurity. Keith, thanks for joining Top Story. Dozens of suspects are still at large. They know the FBI is looking for them. Was this a mistake by the FBI to make these arrests so public before all the suspects had been rounded up?
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate being on again. No, I think this is exactly what needed to be happening. You know, with what you have here, with anytime you have an alleged plot involving high-profile event, especially the White House, attended by the president, government officials, and thousands of spectators, you have to take it extremely seriously. Based on what's been released so far, this wasn't somebody making just threats online. You know, according to the DOJ, there was planning, coordination, and intent to cause mass casualties. That in itself is a very different level of a threat. The encouraging part is that the FBI, as you stated, the Secret Service and partners all around the country have identified the threat early and disrupted it and notified everyone, hey, this is what we did. I think it's a fantastic job by all of them.
A big part of this plot was the drones. I just got back from the first World Cup game here in the United States. That was in Los Angeles. I spoke with the director of the FBI there, in charge of the field office in LA. Their biggest fear was drones as well. They had drone hunters all around SoFi Stadium. How hard is it to protect an event like the White House? So many people have these commercial and sometimes professional drones.
You know, it's not easy, I'll tell you that for sure. It is a fantastic question. But with what they have here, there's a layered security element that's there. So you have the internal, inside, outside, external, outside the White House, layered protectees, and you have different types of anti-drone, you have emergency response teams. Everyone on the grounds of the White House there are all coordinated. Now with something like the UFC fight that happened, it's more than that. It's months and months of planning ahead of time. And by doing that, the coordination and the communication that have been effective through that has been what has been successful.
If we do a buddy stack like that,
working off this threat.
How serious of a threat
we
was
can
this?
just start
you talk about a 19-year-old He had $3,000. He starts to buy weapons. His mom essentially busts him and calls the police. That being said, we saw what happened with a lone gunman and Charlie Kirk. I mean, you never know how dangerous these threats are, or that gunman who tried to take out President Trump and Butler.
You know, you're again. That's spot on. This has to be extremely serious because not only is this something that happened at they wanted to happen at the grounds of the White House, but everyone in attendance. You know, like you said, Butler. You have 2 other incidents. One shooting by the Washington Monument. All these different events. You think, okay. Well, why is this so different?
You play aggro
Vice President J.D. Vance said it perfectly when he said, this is not just a threat, this is an act of terrorism that they plan and coordinated. So understanding that's extremely beneficial for us to realize that what they did effective was extremely important, and the communication investigation, now that it's ongoing, we're going to find out more, and it'd be really nice to see kind of how and what
that means that you've had all these assassination attempts on the president. You saw what happened with Charlie Kirk. This is a very dangerous, very volatile time. The president should be able to do what he wants, but again, these are different times. He hosted this major event outside of the White House. We're going to have all these July 4th events. What is the pressure like on the Secret Service right now?
It's got to be immense. Not only do you have the past history and President Trump and all the threats you have against him, but understanding that these large events that are occurring, the UFC, everything at 250, the Secret Service is in amounts of huge amounts of pressure right now, but they got it right, and they've been getting it right time and time again. So I believe they're up for it. And when you have these events, like I said earlier, you're going to have planning upon planning, and everyone thinks it's the Secret Service on the ground. It's not, and you can see it in this investigation specifically. It's really geared towards the steps prior, the proactive approach, the online review, understanding who the threats are. That's what's key, and that's what's going to make the Secret Service successful in the future.
Keith Wojcicki, we thank you for joining the broadcast tonight.
Thank you.
We do want to get to that breaking news now. The hospital on lockdown in Delaware, 2 people shot. Eyewitness video shows police with long guns arriving to the scene. It's all happening in the heart of Wilmington at one of the biggest hospitals in the city.